Betelgeuse usually makes headlines because of its impending supernova. But now, astronomers have made a completely different discovery in the vicinity of this stellar giant. What had previously been suspected has now been confirmed. Betelgeuse really does have a companion star. Christened with a cute nickname Beetle Buddy, the much smaller companion faces a dramatic fate as scientists believe it will soon be destroyed. But how did the experts discover Betelgeuse's long-hidden partner? And how is it that it's in serious danger? Stay tuned until the end and find out with us. Yesterday was the sun's day. When we look at the impressive flowers that the cosmos has produced elsewhere, we quickly realize that our seemingly powerful host star often comes up short in stellar comparison. Our source of warmth and life has a diameter of 1.4 million kilometers and thus theoretically offers enough space for 1.3 million Earths. But Betelgeuse is 800 times larger than the Sun and shines 10,000 times brighter than our central star. And so it is that the Orion shoulder star, only 650 light-years away, is normally one of the 10 brightest stars in the entire night sky. Although in this case, the emphasis really is on the word normally. The bottom line is that Betelgeuse has repeatedly attracted attention with confusing fluctuations in brightness that pose a huge puzzle to experts. In fact, in December 2019, the stellar colossus dimmed so dramatically that many researchers expected it to go supernova. And the fact that the celestial body is already heading toward its end, despite its age of only 10 million years, is also undisputed. After all, Betelgeuse has already swelled into a red supergiant and has thus reached a stage that will inevitably end in an explosive departure. The star will then increase its regular luminosity by a factor of 16,000, shining as brightly as the full moon and even visible during the day. However, it's uncertain exactly when Betelgeuse will treat us to this spectacular show. The only thing that is certain is that the dimming in 2019 was not related to an approaching supernova, but to a massive plasma eruption that created a huge cloud of dust that temporarily obscured almost two-thirds of the star. Apart from such extreme cases, however, fluctuations in brightness are nothing unusual for Betelgeuse. It is well known that the brightness and surface of the red supergiant pulsate at a rate of around 400 days. But mysteriously, it also exhibits a second significantly longer brightness fluctuation, which occurs at a rate of just under 6 years. However, the reason behind this so-called long secondary period remained a mystery for a long time, as it simply could not be reconciled with the known mechanisms and cycles of stellar activity. And so, it came to pass that experts had to venture into the realm of theory. One particularly exciting theory suggested that the strange 6-year fluctuations were caused by an undiscovered companion star. Since Betelgeuse is called Betelgeuse in English, it was given the nickname Beetle Buddy. And as soon as it disappears behind Betelgeuse as seen from our perspective, the secondary period reaches its lowest point of brightness. When the stellar companion passes by its powerful partner, the luminosities of both stars combine, and the brightness reaches its maximum. At the same time, the companion star could also take on the role of an in-house dust pusher, influencing the distribution of dust clouds and thus playing an additional role in Betelgeuse brightness changes. For this plausible explanation to work, Beetle Buddy would have orbit closely around the red supergiant and be around 20 times lighter and around 1 million times fainter than Betelgeuse. This constellation would also explain why the star phantom has not yet been caught in our net. Because while Betelgeuse has been described in ancient writings and has therefore been studied for a long time, it would literally outshine its much smaller companion all the time. Even the sharp optics of the Hubble Space Telescope would not have been able to locate Beetle Buddy. And some astronomical articles even predicted that we would never be able to directly image Betelgeuse's partner. How Beetle Buddy was discovered. But today, we know that the predictions of specialist journals do not always hit the mark. A team led by Stephen Howell from NASA's AS Research Center has now succeeded for the first time in capturing the previously only predicted companion star of Betelgeuse on camera. The fact that we are now one sensational star discovery richer is thanks to two circumstances. On the one hand, Betelgeuse was in a particularly favorable position in mid-2024 as it was then, as it is every 3 years, at its greatest distance from its oversized partner as seen from our vantage point. On the other hand, the research group was also able to use a special technique for its stellar search, namely the speckle imager on the Gemini North Telescope in Hawaii. This instrument makes it possible to take a large number of images with a short exposure time in quick succession, effectively creating a series of ultra-short snapshots. These snapshots are then combined in such a way that the disruptive effects of the atmosphere can be filtered out. Ultimately, this enabled the scientists not only to confirm the existence of Betelgeuse, but also to image it directly. And let's be clear, this is the first time in the history of astronomical research that the closely orbiting companion star of a supergiant has ever been made visible. According to Howell, this was made possible by the high angular resolution and sharp contrast of Gemini North. And as mentioned briefly earlier, the discovery of the companion also provides us with a solution to a full-blown mystery. After all, the mere existence of Betelgeuse is enough to explain the 6-year brightness fluctuations of Betelgeuse. The smaller, darker companion passes in front of its larger, brighter counterpart at this rate, thus influencing its brightness. Martin Still, program director from the Gemini Observatory, is aware of the significance of this discovery and sums it up as follows. The solution to the centuries-old Betelgeuse problem is an impressive highlight and will be remembered for a long time. How long Betelgeuse itself will remain in our memory is another matter entirely, as researchers unfortunately paint a very bleak picture for its future. What will happen to Betelgeuse in the future? For now, however, the groundbreaking images are providing information about the current state of the newly discovered companion star. According to these, we know that Betelgeuse weighs only 1.5 solar masses, less than 10% of the mass of Betelgeuse, which is up to 20 solar masses. Furthermore, in visible light, the companion appears 6 magnitudes fainter than the supergiant, which means that it ultimately shines not reddish, but rather bluish-white. And once again, for better understanding, the astronomical unit magnitude indicates the apparent brightness of a celestial body. And the smaller the magnitude value, the brighter the object appears to us. Incidentally, Betelgeuse average luminosity is 0.3 to 0.6 magnitudes, and the fact that it's many times brighter than Betelgeuse is consistent with the assumption that both celestial bodies were once born as a double star. Howell explains that although both stars are only around 10 million years old, Betelgeuse has used up its fusion fuel much faster due to its enormous mass. As a result, the final chapter of its stellar life has already begun. But in the case of Betelgeuse, the situation is quite different. Since it's only slightly more massive than the Sun, it's evolving at roughly the same rate, or rather as slowly as our parent star. In other words, while Betelgeuse is already a stellar senior citizen, Betelgeuse is still a hot bluish young star whose nuclear fusion has only just begun. But the bottom line, and this is the crucial point, is that this won't do Betelgeuse much good. Despite its early stage of development, its days are numbered. Now, you might think that this is due to the impending supernova of Betelgeuse, which will tear its companion star apart. But that's not true. In fact, experts believe that Betelgeuse will be destroyed before the final explosion. While its tranquil partner is already orbiting closely around its colossal counterpart, its orbit will narrow even further in the future, eventually leading the star on a spiral course that will plunge it into its doom. Ultimately, Betelgeuse will devour its companion. According to estimates, Betelgeuse will come so close to the supergiant in the next 10,000 years that it will be destroyed by its extreme tidal forces. Now, 10,000 years may sound like an eternity to us, but in an astronomical context, it's no more than the blink of an eye. Despite this, there is still enough time to study Betelgeuse in more detail in the future. The next opportunity for astronomers will be in May 2027. Then both stars will once again reach their greatest distance from each other, as seen from our perspective. And perhaps other large telescopes will then also be able to capture the small companion directly on camera. And now you're welcome to click on the subscribe button. Simply press the thumbs up and subscribe to never miss a new video from us again. See you soon.